So I'm moderating this panel. You know, I think I said this before, but I've been a organic vegetable farmer for the last decade and a hemp and CBD farmer for the last 4 years. Everything we do is either outdoor or greenhouse, but we have some really good people to talk about cultivating cannabis right here. So maybe we could just go down the line and just a quick intro of your name and your background.
My name is Rebecca Knight, and my background is in chemical engineering. I worked in semiconductors for quite a while. Then I did some soul searching, quit my job, went back to school and got a master's in agricultural engineering. And then after that, did a PhD in plant biology, where I looked at the effects of different environmental stimuli on the genetic expression of photosynthesis. So I'm now working at Horton Gardening Company, and I manage the design team. We do cultivation design. We've done over 3,000 designs this year, and it's awesome. It's great.
Very cool. Design planning, very important. Hey.
Awesome. Nice to see you guys again. Marie Montmarquet. My cultivation background is established in 2017. Have a mixed light facility in Salinas, California with 50,000 square feet of cultivation space. There we have a nursery, we have processing, we have distribution, and we were able to grandfather in from Prop 215 to Prop 64 with that particular license. We have 4 acres in development up the street of another greenhouse mixed light facility, and we're definitely trying to diversify into indoor. We have 15,000 square feet of indoor being developed right now, too.
Very, very nice. Thank you, Marie. Go ahead, Jesce.
Me? Yeah, correct, great. My name is Jesce Horton. My background is actually in engineering as well. I graduated with an industrial engineering degree. Did a lot of work for a German company called Siemens. A lot of it involved environmental and energy efficiency. Went out to Munich, Germany, was lucky enough to get transferred to Portland, Oregon, where I quit my job as well and just started growing in my basement for a number of years, just kind of starting from the bottom. So that's really where my background in cultivation really comes, is kind of starting from the bottom and figuring out ways to implement new and unique opportunities for energy efficiency, better quality in the cultivation space. We actually now have about 30,000 square feet in Portland, Oregon, with retail, production, as well as processing. Actually, most of it on one campus in the city of Portland. So it's a dream project.
Amazing, super impressive. From basement to 30K, awesome. All right, so we have a question right here, right? Our first one. Go ahead.
Hell yeah, hello. Thanks for speaking earlier. You guys spit only facts, so that's pretty sick. So my name's Adam Ali. I'm going in High Five Edible Wonders. I'm going in mostly for manufacturing of cannabis-infused staple ingredients, but I'm a pothead and I really love plants in general. So this is mostly a question of, like, what do you see the future of the market as? Because I had a buddy I was talking to yesterday. He's like, bro, you're not gonna get bud that you're not like. The difference between like craft and like homegrown bud versus like bud that comes from the legal market, he's like, you could have mom's home cooking, which will be amazing no matter what, or you could go down the street to like the store and cop, and it'll be the same meal, but just not nearly as good. So my question is and especially coming from legal markets, like, do you see craft cannabis being a thing? Like, I'm working with like pheno hunters and stuff right now, and dudes who like throw away more plants than they actually like take in. But then when you get the bud and you get the hash rosin from that bud, it's better than like God's nectar. Like, but like, will that exist in a legal market? Like, will cannabis like that ever become a thing, or will it just be too damn expensive and too hard to replicate on a higher scale?
That question has like a million things we could unpack. That's like a whole day conference right there. But I think there's pieces of that you guys could start answering, whichever pieces you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I would love to speak on that. I'm from Portland, Oregon. We pride ourselves very much on craft cannabis. And I'll tell you now, you're exactly right. And one thing I'll say is that when we first started medical, there were so many basement grows, right? And everybody had their own little small grow, and they focused on their plant or their genetics. And weed, even in Portland, was so much better back then, because when you have small farmers and more of them who are constantly pushing each other, pushing the genetics and doing pheno hunts, we do it all the time, all year. It's a real process in R&D. The market gets better. That's why I'm really excited, and most potheads, I'm a pothead as well, are really excited about markets like this and the way it's shaping up to focus on small business owners who can really have the opportunity to bring more of that craft type of product to the market. This is the place where it happens.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, definitely keep the faith. In California right now, there's a lot of Walmart weed, things that you can get really cheap. We've all come from backgrounds of seeing a lot of flower traditionally, and you can still sell something that's quality and something that's not quality. I think cannabis in California is being commoditized extremely fast, and prices are lower than they've ever been. It's very scary for a lot of different farmers, especially outdoor. So making sure you have the best is essential for any, not even longevity. If you're an outdoor farmer right now in California, you had to have a spectacular harvest to be profitable. Like, you had to have amazing genetics, you had to have a bud appeal, things that could go in jars, things that are not for manufacturing. So just like anything, you know, you can buy a flannel for $5 and then you can get a nice flannel like Jesse has over here. You can buy a watch for $5, you can buy a watch for $1 million, right? So cannabis will be the same way. There's still gonna be a big piece of the market that doesn't want shitty weed.
Yes, awesome. And then before, Rebecca, I'm just curious, along that line of craft and indoor and basement, you've designed a lot of facilities this year. What's a small-scale craft facility? What's the size you're designing? What is that looking like right now these days in this kind of difficult market that we're talking about?
Well, so I'm glad you asked that, because I can provide some intel on design sizes that we're working with. And I'll say that we are starting to see some massive scale operations. So I'd say also keep the faith. I think quality is going to be really important. So definitely, you know, there are some very large companies that are coming out with really large cultivation areas, but we also, at the same time, I get projects straight from consultants that are working with small-scale growers that are 1,000 square foot flower or even less. And so, you know, it's we are still seeing those projects, but at the same time, we are seeing some really large facilities. So I think, as Marie and Jesse said, there's always going to be a market for craft. Portland is also famous for craft breweries. I've never seen that much IPA in my life, but I think it's sort of a sign that, you know, if you focus on quality, like Mike talked about earlier this morning, if you really focus on that, then I think you'll be okay. But also make sure you know your market. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, we have another question.
Yes, I'm really glad we can ask anything. So I heard a little earlier, I was sitting back here, so I couldn't see who was saying it, about the level of your cultivation facility. I think you said 35,000 square feet or something. It was very large. So Shinnecock, we're actually looking to maybe do 60,000 square feet. A lot of people sometimes frown upon cultivation facilities, but from an environmental standpoint, that's kind of our only choice to go, because that's the only little bit of land we have, which is surrounded by 3/3 of water. So we have to go up. And then also the salt content. So my question is, when you're thinking about all of that, because then we get into the supply chain management, there's a lot of people that want to have in the build somehow. So how do you go through your RFP process to make sure that you are bringing social equity groups into building the cultivation facility itself? You know, so if that's electrical, if that is lighting, all of these software, security, all of these different kinds of things that it takes to build a cultivation facility, how do we also bring in some of those social equity groups through the RFP process?
Great question. What I have seen so far is a lot of grants that can go towards compliance, and maybe out here you guys could think about how you're going to earmark your grant process that's going to come out potentially for social equity. It's a Really good question. There's definitely not enough ancillary businesses in the diverse community. Like, one thing I'm a firm believer in, I hear it all the time, is the merchants made more than the miners. When the gold rush came to California, the merchants got rich. You know, dungarees, leaves, all of these ancillary businesses to support. And you need everything. You need architects. You need all pieces of the supply chain. Like, I've seen all different e-commerce needs, like even hearing her speak about all the payment processing needs. There's every single thing that you do in your daily life that's not even in cannabis intensive. We pay those people in cannabis as well. So how can you guys make sure that in your RFP process, you're earmarking accountability towards, I know in San Francisco, there's definitely contracts that go towards minority-owned businesses. So the state has to give a percentage of different contracts to minority-owned businesses. This could be an opportunity where you can earmark something in your RFP for particular electricians, whatever it is, every single piece of that supply chain, because you're going to pay everybody. And those people are going to make more money than you. So keep it in the family, right?
Well, thank you. And New York does have an MWBE, the Minority Women Business Owner kind of thing for RFPs. So there's a list of those businesses in the state if you're looking for a specific ancillary business. So cool.
Let me say this. I call my construction guy my guardian angel. Like, you definitely need a good construction guy, a good crew to do what you're doing. And having them close from your community, which mine is, certainly helps.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, guys. We have another next question.
Thanks very much, guys, for the perspectives, and thank you to Revel for putting this event together. My name is John Kagia. I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer with New Frontier Data, and my question is about the commoditization of wholesale pricing. And maybe Jessie, Marie, but Rebecca, I'd love to hear your perspective as well. In a market like Colorado, we've seen the wholesale price, the average market rate for wholesale pound, fall from a little over $2,000 a pound in the beginning of 2015 to a little above $1,300 a pound at the beginning of this year. And that's been pretty consistent in a lot of markets where you see this downward price pressure. As a grower, how do you eke out greater efficiency in an established facility to allow you to produce for cheaper and cheaper given what wholesale prices are doing? So this is less about the things that you did before you set up the facility and more about how you continue to drive greater efficiency out of your grows as the market becomes more competitive, because I'm assuming New York is going to look like every other market where you start off with pretty high prices and then more active growers become active and you start to see that pressure.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a great question. So you could start here.
So I would say it all starts with great design, which was the quote that I had earlier today. One of the things that we often recommend, we work with Bob, who helps with rebates, but if you think there might be like regulations coming in the future, let's say energy per square foot or things like that, get in early. Start making sure that you invest in LEDs, for example, early on, so that later on when those regulations come into play, you're ready. So right now we're doing a lot of work with water reclamation. So we're really big on recycling water from HVAC condensate, as well as filtering and recycling water runoff from the plants themselves. So that might not be a regulation currently where you are, but if you look at the numbers and you invest in it now, then you're going to have a leg up when those regulations do come into play, when you do have to start tracking your water, for example. So you'll have an advantage at that point because the other companies are going to be behind. So I would say try to get ahead of it. That's one of the reasons design is so critical. And make sure you know what types of regulations might come in the future so you can plan ahead.
Great question. I think I am more conscious of this than ever with the price depression in California right now. 3 years ago, we were at $1,300 for high quality greenhouse. COVID hit, we shot up to 16, 17, we're in the heyday. Fast forward to right now, we're lucky if we can get 800. Pounds are going as low as 150. So we're turning around like, oh my gosh, what can we do to sustain ourselves? White labeling, of course, becoming a brand. But the two things that matter most, genetics and environment for us. So if we're gonna key into those two things and try to just get 5% efficiencies in more places. Bringing in more consultants, seeing if we can dial in our soil more, our water more, like things that we can easily get. Tissue culture moms, tissue culture varieties, making sure that we're getting plants that are as clean as possible, that are super vigorous and haven't been cloned 1,000 times, 1,000 times, 1,000 times, right? That's huge. Just changing genetics can give you 20, 30% increase depending upon your process and your nutrients. But yeah, for us, this is something that we're really looking at how we can cut costs, at the same time still treat everything as fairly and sustainable as we always have, and at the same time figure out how we can get more production per plant. This is really big if you're bringing in power. Power's very expensive. If you're paying for water, water's very expensive. Design, like she said, inefficient design, I mean, you're done right there, right? So all of these little things are so crucial. Getting a power drop versus paying for a generator, that happened to us recently. We finally got our power drop, so we're ecstatic about that and we'll be paying less. But man, it's more real than ever. Like, especially when you have the illicit market thriving. Like, if we're selling pounds for $150 as an outdoor farm in Mendocino, like, there's gonna be a very limited spectrum of that person wanting to participate in this market, and those are the people we need to incentivize. So, good question.
Jesse, you want to give that one a go?
Yeah, I think focus on your brand right now. You focus on your brand so that dispensaries know and retail operators know who are trying to differentiate out there in the market that you're the one that's making them hot. You're the one that's bringing people there. You're the one that's out in the community. That will, without a doubt, help you from this price suppression that will inevitably happen. Second, making decisions based on data. Not skimping on data loggers in your facility, not skimping on looking at analytics and making those decisions based on analytics and not just on someone telling you the market has dropped. So we want to, drop the price, that's just based on thumb in the wind. We all know the market is different depending on who you're talking to, right? And then also, if it's a cultivation facility specifically, we're talking about cultivation, right? Genetics, without a doubt. Focus on hunting, finding, even creating your own genetics, keeping that IP, and making sure that, again, like you're giving the market what they want, and it's something different. Continue to think about, how do I differentiate? And it can't just be on price. You've got to sell on value and smart decisions versus selling on price. If you're selling on price in this market, if that's the first thing you're talking about when you go to a retailer, you're done. Because this market, you can either be in the rat race or you can be winning, in a lot of different ways. And it's a very different landscape and a different perspective based on where you're operating.
Amazing. All right. Thank you guys so much. All of that advice was gold. So I hope you really listened to it and wrote that down. All of that was amazing. We have time for one more question. So last person.
Hi guys. So my question is more general. So it's, what are some of the gaps that you're seeing in the industry that you think can be specifically filled by minority entrepreneurs? And the second part to that question is, what are some good ways to find like the data and the facts and the figures that you mentioned, Jesse, earlier, besides just using like Google?
Can you repeat the first part of that question? Because I think we just heard the second part.
First question is, what are some of the gaps that you're seeing in the market that can be filled specifically by minority entrepreneurs? Second question is, what are some good ways to find the data and gather the facts and figures on the industry without using obvious things like Google when you're starting out?
Jump on that real quick. One of the biggest gaps I see is brands that really connect with the people. I mean, without a doubt, I'm in a place like Portland, Oregon, where, people are reading about the saturation, right? People are scared of that market, but we're winning, you know what I mean? In so many different ways. We're sold out for the next year because we were able to luckily take our time while we're waiting to get through licensing to develop our brand, right? And really understand where we differentiated, who we are, and who we were speaking to. So I think these people who are coming in with more money, they're dying to have your connection to the community. They're dying to have your perspective on this market, your understanding on what strains move. All of these different things that you have as people who are connected to the market, they can't buy that. Matter of fact, they probably tried to buy some of you, right? And tried to get you to jump on their team because you know those things. So without a doubt, that's one of the biggest gaps that I see because of the fact that there is a lot of money and not so many small operators. And I think data, did you say what data do I look for? I think, you've got to link with some of these companies that are out there that are collecting data, BDS, other ones out there, but you've also got to have the data of the streets, and understanding, where the network is, who's making the moves, who you can trust in the market. So data, without a doubt, when people tell me the market is dropped, I say, have you dropped your price per gram? And most of the time, retailers are not doing that, right? They're just saying, they hear a bunch of weed is out there, so now the market is dropped, but they're not passing that on to the consumer. You know what I mean? So I think tracking that and understanding what things are moving for, not just in what's in that data, but understanding your ear to the street is something that will really help you to determine what strains to grow. Because when you decide a strain, it can take 7, if I find a strain and I find this mother, right, that I've hunted thousands of strains, the whole year, and I find it before I can get that to the market, that's 7 months. You know what I mean? You got to understand that and what's happening in your grow room so that you're making decisions on what's happening 7 months. We grow more sativas in the summer than we do in the winter because that's kind of what people want. So we're making those plans now and last month actually on what we're going to be growing for the summer because we know that more sativas move and that stuff that's out there in the data. More indicas move in the winter. So those things, I think, and being ahead of that and what happens in your cultivation facility is important, being proactive and not reactive.
Cool. Maria and Rebecca, do you want to give that a quick go, and then that's the end?
Yeah, super quick go. I would say everywhere. Like, there is gaps in minority participation in every single piece of the supply chain. When you look at agriculture, especially the fact that 2 black people are sitting up here talking about agriculture, that's ridiculously amazing. There's far too little representation in owning a piece of the supply chain. Your brand, making a brand, I see equity brands middleman to death in San Francisco, in California, meaning you are of a particular status to be an equity brand, but you don't own a distribution license or a cultivation license. You might know him, but you need the middle pieces that you don't have. So you're middleman in between different distributors that upcharge you on the bulk price, upcharge you on your package, upcharge you on everything. So by the time your product makes it to the supply chain, you don't even have a chance. A pre-roll for $20 wholesale, like you don't have a chance. You have to compete at the price the market is at, and we need more participation in the supply chain so you can partner with manufacturers directly, partner with distributors directly, cultivators directly, because we need to be participating in each piece of the license process and the supply chain to build networks within ourselves, right? So I would say everywhere.
And then, so I would say what someone had mentioned earlier. I would say keep coming to events like this, keep holding events like this. I think this is incredible. This has shown me I'm very enthused. Now, I get it, I'm pale as heck, like I'm not, but I want diversity. I think a lot of people want diversity, and I would say this is a compassionate industry, right? So brand is important, and having that connection, as Jesse mentioned, it's critical. It's inherent in this industry. So I say embrace it, network, get out, talk to people. Yeah, this is exciting times, and I love this topic, and I realize that I'm maybe out of place, but I think this is something we need to talk about, and I'm very, very happy we're doing that. So that's awesome.
All right.
She's not out of place at all. She's been in the industry. She knows plant science. She's been around without a doubt. So we're welcome to have you on this panel with us.
Right.